How the Supreme Court's right-wing capture lead to the end of America. The Supreme Court of the United States, once regarded as a bastion of impartial justice, has become a deeply politicized institution. Its right-wing capture, orchestrated through decades of conservative strategy and culminating in the Trump administration's judicial appointments, represents a profound threat to democracy, civil rights, and the rule of law. From a left-wing perspective, the court's transformation into a partisan body is not just a legal or political issue. It is an existential crisis that could lead to the unraveling of American democracy. By dismantling voting rights, rolling back reproductive freedoms, and empowering corporate interests, the right-wing Supreme Court is paving the way for authoritarianism and the erosion of the very foundations of the United States. The right-wing takeover of the Supreme Court. The right-wing capture of the Supreme Court is the result of a decades-long project by conservative activists, politicians, and organizations like the Federalist Society. This project reached its zenith under the Trump administration, which appointed 3 justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, solidifying a 6-3 conservative supermajority. These appointments were made possible by the Republican Party's willingness to bend and break norms, from Mitch McConnell's blockade of Merrick Garland's nomination in 2016 to the rushed confirmation of Barrett just weeks before the 2020 election. The consequences of this takeover are already being felt. The court's conservative majority has issued rulings that undermine democracy, restrict civil liberties, and prioritize corporate power over individual rights. From a left-wing perspective, these decisions are not just legal interpretations. They are part of a broader agenda to entrench conservative dominance and roll back decades of progress. The assault on voting rights. One of the most alarming aspects of the right-wing court's agenda is its assault on voting rights. In Shelby County v. Holder 2013, the court gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a landmark piece of legislation that protected minority voters from discriminatory practices. By striking down the Act's pre-clearance provision, which required states with a history of voter suppression to obtain federal approval before changing their voting laws, the court opened the floodgates for a wave of restrictive voting laws. This trend has continued with rulings like Brnovich v. DNC 2021, which upheld Arizona's restrictive voting laws and made it harder to challenge discriminatory practices under the Voting Rights Act. These decisions have emboldened Republican-led states to pass laws that disproportionately disenfranchise Black, brown, and low-income voters, effectively rigging the electoral system in favor of conservative candidates. From a left-wing perspective, the court's assault on voting rights is a direct attack on democracy itself. By making it harder for marginalized communities to vote, the court is undermining the principle of equal representation and consolidating power in the hands of a privileged few. The rollback of reproductive rights. The right-wing court's decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization 2022, which overturned Roe v. Wade, marked a devastating blow to reproductive rights and bodily autonomy. By allowing states to ban abortion, the court has jeopardized the health and lives of millions of people, particularly those in low-income and marginalized communities. This decision is not just about abortion, it is about control. Control over women's bodies, control over personal freedoms, and control over the future of reproductive justice. The Dobbs decision also sets a dangerous precedent for the erosion of other constitutional rights. In his concurring opinion, Justice Clarence Thomas explicitly called for the reconsideration of rulings that protect access to contraception, same-sex relationships, and marriage equality. From a left-wing perspective, this signals the court's willingness to dismantle decades of progress on civil rights and social justice. The empowerment of corporate interests. The right-wing court has consistently sided with corporate interests over the rights of individuals and workers. In cases like Citizens United v. FEC 2010, the court opened the floodgates for unlimited corporate spending in elections, equating money with speech, and giving wealthy donors disproportionate influence over the political process. This decision has fundamentally distorted democracy, creating a system where the needs of the many are routinely ignored in favor of the interests of the few. Similarly, the court's rulings on labor rights have undermined workers' ability to organize and advocate for fair wages and working conditions. In Janus v. AFSCME 2018, the court dealt a blow to public sector unions by ruling that non-union members cannot be required to pay fees for collective bargaining. This decision weakens unions' ability to represent workers and advocate for policies that benefit the working class. From a left-wing perspective, The court's pro-corporate agenda is a betrayal of the principles of economic justice and fairness. By prioritizing the interests of corporations over the needs of workers and consumers, the court is exacerbating inequality and undermining the foundations of a just society. The threat to democracy and the rule of law. The right-wing court's decisions are not just individual rulings. They are part of a broader pattern of undermining democracy and the rule of law. By dismantling voting rights, rolling back civil liberties, and empowering corporate interests, the court is creating a system that is increasingly unaccountable to the people. This erosion of democratic norms and institutions is a hallmark of authoritarianism, and it poses a grave threat to the future of the United States. The court's role in the 2020 election further highlights this threat. Despite baseless claims of voter fraud and attempts to overturn the election results, the court refused to intervene, effectively legitimizing the attacks on democracy. This failure to defend the integrity of the electoral process underscores the court's complicity in the rise of authoritarianism. A left-wing vision for reform. From a left-wing perspective, the right-wing capture of the Supreme Court is a call to action. To address this crisis, we must pursue bold and transformative reforms that restore balance, accountability, and justice to the judiciary. Key elements of this vision include expanding the court, adding seats to the Supreme Court to counterbalance the conservative supermajority and restore ideological diversity, implementing term limits, establishing term limits for Supreme Court justices to prevent the concentration of power and ensure regular turnover, strengthening ethics rules, enforcing strict ethical standards for justices to prevent conflicts of interest and partisan bias, protecting voting rights, passing federal legislation to restore and expand voting rights, such as the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, building a movement for justice, mobilizing grassroots efforts to advocate for judicial reform, protect civil rights, and hold the court accountable. Conclusion: the fight for the future. The right-wing capture of the Supreme Court is not just a legal or political issue. It is an existential threat to democracy, justice, and the future of the United States. From a left-wing perspective, the court's transformation into a partisan body represents the culmination of a decades-long project to entrench conservative power and roll back progress on civil rights, social justice, and economic fairness. The stakes could not be higher. The time to act is now. By pursuing bold reforms, building a movement for justice, and defending the principles of democracy and equality, we can reclaim the Supreme Court and ensure that it serves the people, not the powerful. The fight for the future of America is a fight for the soul of the nation, and it is a fight we cannot afford to lose.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to talk to me outside of this video, outside of live streams, or just join the community and be a part of it, you can do so at HIMediaTV/Discord. Discord links there. We'd love to have you. And given the financial situation of the economy right now, I know this is a tall ask, but if you have the scratch to spare, please consider donating and becoming a supporter at HIMedia.gg/tip. All of our perks are serviced through our Discord channel, including early access videos, exclusive videos, and more. Your generosity is a blessing, and $1 a month is a boon to my mental health. Thank you so very much for watching. I appreciate you, and have a great day.